So we'll just wait a few more seconds as people are logging on. Okay, well, I say let's get started. So thank you everyone for joining me on this webinar on Qthena, a purpose-built digital co-pilot. My name is Samuel Wu, the Managing Director of Morningside Translations, the Language Solutions Group at Questel. For a quick introduction on Morningside Translations, we support organizations with a full suite of end-to-end language solutions and AI-enabled translation and multimedia services. For the legal market, we support all the AM200 law firms in the United States and law firms globally with language solutions like certified and sworn translations, interpretations, multilingual document reviews, machine translation processing, post-editing, and related legal language needs. As part of Questel, a global intellectual property and legal technology provider, we continue to stay at the forefront of technology development, especially around artificial intelligence and co-pilots. Joining me today on the webinar is Tony Yafron, founder and CEO of IPQuants, and Danon Albi, partner at Potomac Law Group and chair of their AI and patent prosecution groups. We are excited to present the legal use cases of Qthena, Questel's AI platform and co-pilot, and show how legal professionals can leverage Qthena to speed up document reviews, including images, draft documents, collaborate securely with team members, and get actionable insights with AI. This recording will be recorded and shared afterwards. Let me turn the floor over to Tony to get things started.
Thanks. Great, thanks, Sam. Hi, everyone. So I'm Tony. I'm based here in Switzerland, so if it gets a bit dark in the background, don't worry, the lights are not going off. So let me go through this presentation for you. Thanks for taking the time. And first, going to introduce you to Qthena, and we're going to run it through a use case. And at the end of this presentation, we're going to have a chat with Danon about how they're using Qthena in their practice. Okay, so I'm sharing my screen already. So let's start a little bit with high level, what your reality looks like today, because actually there's a lot of talk about AI all the time, but the generative AI, the large language models, are really just one piece of the puzzle. You are struggling with a lot of documents, a lot of tools, and you're jumping around in different tools all day long. So you have like a messy screen that you're staring at all day long because of all of these PDF panels you need to optimize for your projects. Then you need maybe an OCR that maybe doesn't work, etc., etc. So the legal professional's reality is a bit messy, and we try to solve that with our Qthena solution to provide a single environment where you could have all of your tools. Because not only is that important for better productivity, meaning if you're going to review a PDF file, it probably is better if you have that PDF file side by side with your AI chat, as here you can see on the left, Qthena is doing. Because as you're getting your output from Qthena in your chat, you can verify with the live PDF arranged side by side. If you have to leave the project, you come back later or you revisit the case when the client responds to you in 3 weeks, you re-enter exactly where you left off. There is no time wasted with finding that PDF again, scrolling down to the page 59 again, like I'm showing here. Everything is just there. These are things that with general co-pilots are not possible. Like they will optimize for a quick answer, but we all know that AI at this point can really just deliver a first-grade draft. And the same is true with Qthena. And we're very transparent around that and help our user optimize that situation. As AI improves over time, of course, solutions like ours can also give you a more complete first draft. But the goal is to give you a first-grade draft that you can quickly verify. And having all of the tools in one place gives you higher confidence in completing that task at a higher quality level. So how do we achieve better quality in a first draft output already? What we really try to mimic with Qthena is it says you would be working with a colleague. I like to say, imagine yourself in a conference room and you have a discussion with a colleague, an associate. What would that look like? That's how you should interact with Qthena. In order to optimize this experience, we give all of our users speech to text, and we always force Qthena to visually review every page. And we get to that later. The only thing we're really optimizing for here is for quality, not necessarily for speed. We need to get your high quality first result so that you can have higher confidence in the end product you're going to deliver to your client. So while others like to, one-click download of a Word file, we could certainly do that if we wanted to, but at this state of AI, we don't do that in our product. We like to joke that we're more in the business of delivering safety belts and airbags rather than just a gas pedal for you. We need to make it safe and secure for your team to get out a first draft of an AI solution. And it does not help if you can just click a button, download a Word file. Friday evening, somebody will overlook something. Trust me. We still see it in the media every couple of weeks that people submit hallucinated work products to the courts. There is a reason, right? There is a reason, because those tools don't focus on giving you a first draft. They're not transparent around what they're really in business for. And we make it perfectly clear that we're here to assist the human and not to replace the human. For that purpose, the cockpit is essential. Another essential piece, though, is that we actually pre-engineer the prompt aspect of the tool, meaning, of course, you need to interact with Qthena and steer it, but you don't have to explain every little thing to it. Qthena already knows for most of the IP workflows, patent, trademarks, etc. It already knows, your domain. So you're not starting from scratch, right? So if you have a legal workflow, Qthena has a general skill already where we behind the scene instruct Qthena how to behave for this legal workflow. You don't have to be an expert, of course, in prompt engineering. I don't think that's the purpose of delivering an AI solution to professionals, that they need to spend, a lot of time just getting started. Of course, you will improve over time your skills in prompt engineering. You can apply them, but it just has to kind of be there from day one with all of the tools and mechanisms in place. One simple example: if you upload a document for real-time chat, we actually force Qthena not to respond to you if you ask a question that kind of is completely off and doesn't seem to have anything to do with the document. There are guardrails in place where Qthena then basically will say, sorry, I can't help you with that. But there are also other use cases here we already optimized for, and more so-called Qthena skills are coming. Qthena has been live since 2021 actually already, and our generative AI chat functions has been in production since 2023. So we've started this very early, myself having worked in-house in a legal department and before that in a law firm. So we really like to say that we understand the problems you're facing. Of course, like any AI pilot for the legal industry, security is important. It's essential that you pass all of these internal security checks, but you can rely on that Qthena is being built on the most secure infrastructure. We use Azure, we use Google Vertex, all of the top providers in the world to deliver you the safest work product, while we also have a purpose-built design behind the scenes to optimize your experience. So let's get to the use case for today. So instead of talking about a real-time chat interaction, which we'll have a chat with Dan on later about, we wanted to highlight something different that's usually is not possible in any of the other Copilot solutions you probably met before. That is large document review, bulk processing of, let's say, 100 documents at once. So in this example we're going to run through now, we're going to assume that we want to conduct an initial screening of 90 plus documents. And what we want is that we want to deliver a first draft summary for each document. We want to ensure that every document has been looked at. And the format could be, any PDF we upload, or if you are like in the patent space, you can actually copy paste patent numbers. Obviously, we have a couple of expectations when we do this type of task with an AI solution. One of the expectations you have, and I'll get back to that later in detail, is you obviously assume that if you're going to give an AI a PDF file, let's say, that it's going to look at the entire PDF file. We want a complete read and visual inspection. We expect a high quality first draft, so initial summary rooted in the document we provide or the documents we provide. And you want this to be consistent, this quality. You don't want, only the first 5 to have like great quality, but then towards the end of it, quality goes down. At the end of the day, it's not a human who's going to look at this. So the AI shouldn't get tired, so to speak. In this bulk review, we buried a document, this document I'm showing now, because the use case is more about, it could be any document, of course, but for today's purposes, we're going to focus on a real estate use case. You have this condition assessment report, and this is kind of a great use case also for patent and other IP people in the call, because this document has a mix of tables, drawings, images, and even maps, right? So it's a very complex document that you can see here. And of course, some of the other documents in the chat that in the review rather, that Qthena and also these other general Copilot tools will have to review are patent documents, and most of the people in the call understand the complexity of patent documents. So let's see first how a general Copilot, let's call it Copilot A, will handle this. So one of the tasks is to just give it the numbers, and instead of giving it like 100 numbers right away, I just wanted to highlight, one of the basic things. So this was done today, actually. So it's not like I'm pulling an old screenshot here on the right-hand side. So basically I said, summarize this patent for me, and I just gave the number. Because there's still this conception, almost misconception out there that a tool should just go get me the patent if I just give it a number. But you could see here, it was struggling. It was not able to fetch this number. Right? So imagine now you have a list of 100 patents and you just throw them into an AI tool, and you think it will go fetch that document. The problem with general AI tools, they will go into the internet, right? So they try to please you like any AI tool. And if you don't have any guardrails, you think it will fetch it. You think even if it went and got something, it's the right one, but can you really be sure? We don't want to jeopardize this for our users. So if you still trust a general Copilot to always fetch the right document for you, you really should reconsider, right? And in this example, it's easy to catch, right? It's just one document, but if we would have thrown in 100 patent numbers now, you would probably miss it. So that's just one basic example to highlight here. But let's move on to the next general Copilot that you all know. So we're not trying to chat in real time in this use case, as I explained. We're really trying to give it like 90 documents plus. So I was not able to do it, of course, because you can only upload 10 documents at a time. So I kind of stopped after with just doing with 12 documents. So I'm just trying to give it 12 documents out of the 90 plus. Okay, so I had to do this in 2 steps. So let's go to the next step. So I've done 2 steps process, and you can see here I said list all of the documents you have access to now in this chat session, and indeed I succeeded in giving it all 12. Great. So now we're good to go. So now we're ready after some struggle. We gave it 12 PDF files. I did not try to give it just pure patent numbers because I know that would fail. So now I'm going to ask my question. And the question is twofold. Actually, I'm going to ask 2 questions. I'm telling it, I want you to read and visually analyze the document provided or the documents. Tell me the document type. I need to first know if it's a property condition assessment. If yes, the second question means then if the first question is answered with yes, I want to understand if the document you're reviewing relates to a property that is near a place called Mars Hill. Yeah, you could have other type of questions, more complicated question. It's a pretty straightforward question. So let's see how it handles this. So the tool goes through the first document and answers the first question, says, yes, this document is a PCA, and then goes to the next question and says, no, there is no disclosure that the property is near Mars Hill. Okay, great. Then it takes the next document number 2, and does the same thing. and again, concludes this is not disclosed. And then it does the other documents as well that we gave it. All of the other documents were patent documents, so it just said no, and that's fine. It didn't have to answer the second question. So yeah, we gave it 12 document. It gives you an answer, but obviously, let's have a look then at the answer. And it's nicely summarized at the end again and said, these two documents are PCAs, property condition assessment documents. The others are not, but both of them do not disclose Mars Hill. But actually, one of the documents you may have noticed before when I introduced this document does disclose Mars Hill, but only in one single place and only in this map. And that's a map that you can really only catch with visual analysis, right? It's very difficult to catch something like this. So let's see how we would handle this in our solution, in the Qthena solution. And obviously, what I just showed you could also be a pattern drawing or anything similar. So step one in our solution is we're going to use what we call the research assistant. That also has been battle tested for a very long time now. Most of these things we're discussing here, like research assistant chat, we have introduced over 2 years ago already. So you can in Qthena chat with any document real time, but today we focus on the research assistant. So on the right-hand side, you can upload your PDF files, or you can just copy paste patent numbers, for example, and we will automatically import those. So that's the first automation happening there, that we import the relevant documents into this so-called session. Now, you will have a counter, you will get visual feedback that if something didn't work out, there will be no check mark here. So even before you start, so we don't even gonna let Qthena start, you will know like, okay, for some reason, these documents will not enter the assignment, the task. So that always sounds a little bit like, yeah, what's so special about it? But we're building this around the human. The human must understand what's going on. And that's the first piece of the puzzle here, that you need to have these automations working for you. You must be fully aware what goes into this task before it starts, not afterwards. You can't just assume I gave it 100 documents and now it's going to review all of them. So that's one thing. So I clearly can see here all of the documents checked. I can define my prompt here, the same question we had for this other task. And then Qthena actually, what it does different than other documents review tools is we're actually going to force it in this automation to pick one document at a time. So we are not in this for speed. We're in this for quality. We have to achieve the best possible quality for the human to start their review. Remember, Qthena will not give you a complete answer. Compared a little bit to like a first screening of an associate. You're going to give them a task and she's going to go review those documents and write a summary for each of the documents you gave. And that's how we look at things, right? So that first review that Qthena does and the first draft it will present to you should be as complete as possible, obviously. So in this example, Qthena went through all of the documents. And at this document, it says, actually, yes, when it comes to the question, does the document relate to property that is near Mars? It said yes, although the property address listed text is something completely different. I can see in Appendix 1 on page 83, and this is what I highlighted here, that Mars Hill is disclosed. So Qthena always will try to cite where it found something so that you can quickly, on the right-hand side, so this is the cockpit, you can actually open up the PDF itself and put them side by side, as I tried to explain before, to quickly verify inside of the tool very conveniently. Of course, you could also just mark a part in any answer Qthena delivers and ask the tool to show you where it found support, and it will even cite. You can just copy these citations actually, but you could also click and say, go to document. So of course, it's always grounded in this document then when Qthena responds. So here's also a quick highlight what actually happens under the hood. So I actually ran this review today, earlier today. So I started this review today at around 1, almost 2 o'clock. And It reviewed 91 documents. I gave it 91 documents, and it was done within, let's say two hours, actually within an hour. So in this research assistant mode, we don't optimize, as I already highlighted, for speed. We highlight that the important thing here is that Qthena really has a look at everything. Right? So let's summarize what we just saw here. And then there's also, maybe this can help you, with some misconceptions in the market that we see from people that, yes, they might have tried some tools out there, but they haven't really considered what goes into a B2B tool purpose built. So let's start with the first one, why Qthena succeeds, but they're also like general learnings maybe that you can use as you compare to other tools that you're assessing. First of all, people usually think faster is better, right? They get super impressed when you click a button, I have my Word file, or like I get a super great answer, they think. But actually, that's not true, right? Because certain things are also true with AI, right? If you give it more time, or if you build a process where you let it focus more, just like a human, it will perform better. And this is, not known to many. So we actually, on purpose, designed the Qthena solution for certain workflows to work slower, because it will then do a more complete reading. And one of the big difference between our solution and others is we actually force the tool to always read every page. That's another misconception, right? People think all Copilot solutions read the text in the same manner. They're like, yeah, what's the difference? Like if I give an, GPT the document, or Microsoft Copilot the document, they will all read it in the same way, even if I give it to Qthena. That's actually also not true, because it's just one piece of the puzzle, the AI, but how you build the document review makes a big difference. So almost all, and I'm not going to bore you too much with technical terminology, but almost all of the AI tools you have seen or heard about, B2B or consumer, they use a technology called RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation. Essentially, they don't read the whole document you give them, full stop. They are optimized for a use case to respond to you very fast. So what they do, they usually just fetch a summary of the document in order to answer your question. They check your question, they're like, okay, to answer this question, I only need these paragraphs. Out of, let's say, 100-page document, they will go fetch the relevant paragraphs. That's great use case. And we use that technology also for some matters, but not for these legal workflows that you come for usually. You expect an AI to read everything if you have a litigation going on and you need to screen, like, I don't know, 100 documents. So if you optimize for quality and you force the tool to read every page, and this is important, also to visually see every page, and we just saw the big difference this can make, right? It has an impact at the end of the day if you optimize a tool for that type of purpose. And then there are many of these criteria, but let's take the last one, because people usually say, I can just use a general Copilot tool. Why do I need yours? You're just a wrapper. You use the API anyway. And that's true. We use the API of Gemini right now because we don't care who develops the best LLM. We love it every time a new LLM is released. We love that situation because it makes our tool also better, because we pick up where these guys stop. Right? So we go deep down in the vertical. So last year we had GPT as a default API. This year, since January already, we have switched for our users to Gemini 2.5 Pro, and Gemini 3 is around the corner. It's not publicly released yet. It's just in a beta from Google. But what I'm trying to say, yes, of course, we also use the best LLMs. We are agnostic. That's the great thing. You don't bet with us which LLM will win the race, which you would do if you go to a ChatGPT Copilot, for example. We can just switch, and we've done it. But the problem is, the LLM is really just one piece of the puzzle. There's so much more. It's how you deploy the LLM, right? So you just saw an example, same kind of questions, same documents. Actually, Qthena got a bit tougher task because I gave it all 91 documents, and I didn't give the general Copilot all 91 documents. I just gave it 12 and it still failed. Because behind the scenes, when you build this workflow, it works completely differently in these two tools. And that's because we deploy the LLM completely differently. So no, it's not just about the LLM. It does not do everything. The architecture and the purpose for which you're going to use a tool does make a difference. So having said all of that, and here are some of the other examples you can use Qthena for. Of course, you can collaborate and share. I want to move over now to the part of the discussion with Danon. Hi, Danon, and thanks again for joining today. And just wanted really we invited Danon to have a chat around, and we're really excited that you did take the time for us. But we just want to have a chat around like how you are using the tool in your environment, Qthena, and AI in general. So my first question, Danon, to you would be, what made you feel in general now speaking that the time had come to seriously consider AI for your practice? And, what were your expectations when you began looking for a solution?
Hi, Tony. Thanks for having me, and thanks for being kind of a great partner through the process of searching for an AI tool. Potomac Law Group, like every firm, is facing a lot of operational pressures. We have constantly increasing volume and complexity of work, but the time and budgets available to do that really haven't kept pace. So legal AI tools have been a way for us to increase efficiency without sacrificing quality. So the attorneys that have been using these tools can really focus on their strategic thinking around the projects, what they want to make the project be at the end of the day, without having to craft every sentence individually and really think about what is the language that I'm using. That was sort of the initial thought behind all of this, and that's turned out to be the case, in most respects. But we believe that using these tools will become a requirement for any firm that really wants to stay competitive, both in terms of quality and efficiency. So we wanted to stay ahead of, we didn't want to be forced to do that. We wanted to kind of be on the leading edge of it. So what we did is, excuse me, so we evaluated the market of AI legal tools. In many regards, they were similar. They're, as you mentioned, they're built on sort of the same backend LLMs, but the results often felt a bit generic. They were, those LLMs are pulled from a very large language corpus, and they're not necessarily tuned to carefully, draft patent applications or responses to office actions. So they would require a lot of fine tuning for us to really get any kind of results that were meaningful from them. Be very careful in prompt drafting and figure out where we would fit them into our workflows, kind of changing our workflows to meet the tool instead of having the tool kind of fit into our day-to-day. So Qthena, sort of on the other hand, did a much better job out of the box. It had, it took in sort of the understanding of what it meant to be a patent associate, how to do patent prosecution, drafting, reasoning. So it really just felt like a very skilled associate that could produce work very more quickly than an associate ever would. So it already understood the basics of patent prosecution and how to approach tasks in this space, and required very little time to really produce results. So it's been something that I would say is going to be required of any firm that really wants to stay competitive in this space.
Thanks. Yeah, that's great to hear, and especially that comparison that Qthena is almost like this associate that you interact with that knows already things about the profession. In your case, patent drafting and so on. And if we focus a little bit on the beginnings when you start rolling this out, before you were rolling out Qthena, what were expectations really, and what were you expecting? How it would fit into your day-to-day workflow, and when you started using it, if you can walk us through that a little bit, were
Sure.
any surprises and the like?
Sure. Having used a number of chat GPT style systems, I expected quick results, right? But not necessarily things that were accurate. And it was going to take so much oversight that I expected it to produce a result that may be faster at the end of the day, but I didn't really expect it to help generate quality drafts. Some of my associates who and partners who use this tool have really commented on the improvement in the quality of their writing that has happened through this, because they can give it, here are the bullet points I want you to draft. Here's the strategy I want you to follow, and then its writing can be better than what we would produce necessarily for ourselves. It was, Qthena was able to really summarize the art, quickly generate structured drafts, and really accelerate sort of our workflows. One of the things that I really appreciated about using Qthena was the dialogue that we have, this sort of instilling confidence in what it understands and what is required before doing the work. It really lets us, tweak what its understanding is before it completes a draft of whatever, whether it's a new patent application or response to an office action. It's built in to have sort of this back and forth with us. So for example, drafting a patent application, Qthena, it has already built in to provide a summary of the technology, allowing me to adjust its position on certain things, or say, hey, make sure you focus on this part of it. That's the really inventive concept here, so that when it creates a draft, it is appropriately focusing and scoping the application. Or when we're doing office action response, I don't just ask it for a draft. I can push back on proposed strategy. It says, okay, I think I want to, here's, I looked at the documents you provided, and I think that this would be a good way to go. And I'm able to have a discussion with it, asking it, the way you would associate. Why do you feel like this? Where in the document is the support for what you're proposing here? Things like that, that really provides, rationale and documentary support for its conclusion. I can ask it to challenge an examiner's interpretation, propose several different amendments or paths to go down, provide alternate examples in the patent application, analyzing different parts of each one. So that back and forth really made the final product more accurate and thorough, and really the ability to check in with it at the beginning and define its workflow and have it tell me what its workflow is going to be really increased my trust in the final product.
Great, thanks. So yeah, I mean, I would also like to talk about, and I already said it earlier, right? So we like to focus on delivering like the safety belts and airbags first, and not just the speed pedal. And I think you kind of like highlight that already a little bit in your approach there. And we don't rush about generating text when we deliver the solution. We really want Qthena to analyze everything deeply to mimic this you sitting in a conference room with a colleague kind of scenario, right? So we highlighted a little bit before, but you also just mentioned it. Because of this digital workspace, that digital cockpit approach that we have, and Qthena is optimized for delivering a first draft. Like, we're very transparent around what it does and what it, what it can do and what it can't do. What's your experience? I know you touched upon it a little bit already, but if we go into this like this, having everything in this digital environment and having this iteration back and forth, what's your experience there so far?
Yeah, so just to contrast it with some other tools, I would say, using other tools, you get a fast answer, but you're never quite sure how much of the source materials it used. Did it consider those in the way that you intended them to, unless you really spend a lot of time manually categorizing those in your prompt, telling the system, this is what this document is for, this is what that type of what it means to be that type of document, all those sort of things that an associate would know if you said, here is prior art, So it was really sort of frightening how frequently those other tools would very confidently provide you a completely wrong answer. And so, I appreciate Qthena's sort of built-in structure to categorize the input that I'm providing, the different types of documents, and provide sort of these initial check-ins. It's sort of built to automatically instruct the underlying LLM, whichever LLM that is, to properly view my various input types, connecting the if I provide draft claims to what parts of the specification it's going to be able to do, be able to compare arguments, being able to sort of know if, okay, this is an office action, here's what the examiner is saying, this is what it means to be an office action even, those types of things that some LLM would be able to pull out from its general knowledge in some way, but not in the way that this system has been configured through its pre-instructions to know the difference between these different types of things. So its output is not just sort of this superficial, it can be very grounded in the record. And then you can ask it, like, which document did this come from? Where did this come from in which document? How did you understand that part of the document? So, I still double check everything. You have to in any kind of system like this. And then that's, I want to be clear that this isn't a system that you can, you're not passing off your work to somebody else. It is very important that, we still check everything, but with Qthena, the ability to check that work more meaningfully and more quickly, I have found to be significant. Our ability to understand the results, know where those results came from, and understand the accuracy of those results was really more effective than with other systems. So, you're really viewing this Qthena as a sort of digital associate, built to analyze and confirm first, and then write, and then provide support. It was really the one of the most important and meaningful results of using the system.
Yeah. So obviously, when we speak to others as well, this is exactly the point, right? They always get a bit surprised, like how Qthena can be like to the point already in the first draft, like a skilled associate. And when we build a system, we make it perfectly clear, and people are sometimes surprised that we are so like, you cannot just take the answer and move on, right? As you just also highlighted, it's just the first draft, right? But having everything in one place, does make a difference for you to focus on the strategy, as you already highlighted, right? And then you can just really iterate around the strategy instead of like scrolling up and down PDF files all day long and wasting your energy on that type of stuff. So the fact, and you touched upon this a little bit, but if we focus on this aspect, skilled associate, like how does the fact that Qthena acts as a skilled associate, kind of like out of the box, because we do pre-train it with other information and so on, that it understands all of these nuances, like how does this show up in your daily practice? Like,
yeah, I would say that's one of the biggest advantages here. I'd say a lot of the AI tools that we tried, they really require you to learn how to use them, how to talk to them. You need to understand sort of the background workings of the system so that you can engineer prompts that will provide something that is meaningful to your practice. And that's possible to do. It just takes a huge amount of effort with every single interaction, right? You have to really, customize your prompt to the system with a lot of those other tools. With Qthena, I would say, as with any powerful system, it takes some time to understand the complexities and the best ways to utilize the various tools. But once you're past this initial learning curve, we found it really easy to fit into our workflows. And I think that not just like saying that we as a firm have workflows that we found out where to fit them into, but each partner, with their individual practice, is able to find the right place to plug in these tools. And this system, because of its pre-training and because of its sort of innate, knowledge of how these flows work, we were able to fit them into the workflow that best works for them. And I've heard this from various other partners that are using this tool. Everyone sort of has a different way of utilizing it, but it's really provided a benefit for everyone. But every benefit's been a little bit different, and that's been kind of interesting to see how it's been able to fit into these different workflows because of this sort of skilled associate knowledge that it has. As I noted earlier, I would say that I would call Qthena maybe like this third-year associate that can provide work really, really quickly. I can use plain English to interact with it. Telling it, I provide instructions, examples, ask for an initial check-in on its understanding, and then I very quickly get a result which I can stress test. I get sort of this rationale and support for each section that they produce. I can have it do it in one section, saying, hey, I would like you to provide an abstract and a summary of the invention. Let's talk about that. Go through that together. Understanding, what did you see in this image, or this drawing that I provided, making sure it understands, where the different parts go together, how it all fits together, and then, I can, really make sure that its understanding and my understanding align before we move on to the next section. And one thing I wanted to call out that Tony sort of quickly mentioned earlier, but when he was talking about it, I thought that this was something that was really helpful to us, is being able to sort of chat with a document. Being able to ask a document where it defines a term, to summarize a concept, how it compares. If I give it a text description of something that I'm looking at, how does it understand? How does it compare its description to that thing? And that can really save a significant amount of time, especially because then it can say, oh, and I understand this from look at paragraph 14, midway down, and this is where you will find the definition of that term, even though it's maybe not set up as a definition, right? And so in our day-to-day work, I would say this impact is really quite large. Qthena probably saves us at least 20 to probably even more on sort of jump starting each project, right? It's giving us that initial draft that we can then review and provide some really good additions and improvements to. But that's where we get sort of this initial impact. One other thing I just want to mention, you mentioned sort of the guardrails, the built-in sort of Qthena prompts. The way it sort of stays grounded in the documents that I've provided and categorized for it really does help provide confidence in the result. And I think that's been really critical in using these tools in a way that we can feel that we're providing a product that's as good or better than we would do without it.
Great, thanks. Yeah, I love hearing that. I mean, I think what I also understood from the last, answer of you here, and like as you were explaining how you're using it, like I see this in a lot of other, firms that use our tool, that it's so flexible. Everybody kind of does a little bit different thing with it, right? So some people will just use it to stress test, right? And some people use it to draft. So I love to take this example. Like usually, when we sell to a firm, like let's say there are 10 users. I mean, each user might have a different reason why they said yes to get a seat with Qthena, and I think that also just points towards its strengths, and that you can really grow with the tool, because everybody starts off at a different stage, right? Even if you're in one and the same firm, people start off at different levels. Maybe people have tried AI already, some haven't. Some people want it for prosecution, some people want it for drafting, some people have colleagues in the general legal department. So yeah, that reminded me of that process. So thanks for doing that. So yeah, thanks, and we're at the end of this chat. Thank you again for taking the time. It was great hearing you, and I'm gonna open up the floor now to questions. I don't know, Sam, if you have some questions already.
Yes, so I think one of the things that you demoed was around the images, right? The ability to process images. And one of the questions that we had was around the Qthena skill to generate pattern drawings. When will this be available? Is this on the roadmap? Do you have any more information that you can share about that?
Yeah, so thanks for that question. Yes, so as everything we do, we just focus on quality, and we know that some other tools have been out there that have been delivering pattern drawings for a while, but we just never really cared about that, because just focus on quality, right? And until now, it was not possible to get great quality out of these LLMs. And we're not in the business of competing with Google and ChatGPT, obviously. So we wait until they improve their LLMs. But 2 or 3 weeks ago now, Gemini 3.0 came. And we launched a blog post where you can see some of the results. The way things are looking right now, we're going to release it before Christmas still. It's going to be built on top of Gemini 3.0. So this will be the first version in Qthena that's going to use 3.0 Gemini. It's going to release as an add-on. However, the way Google does this is the first version of every new LLM, Google will learn from your input. So It's going to be like a preview for the users. There will be big warnings around it because we don't learn from the user. We don't train anything. Everything our users do is confidential. Actually, even a prompt that you put into Qthena, even though we have an API with Google in this instance, your email never leaves our environment. So they never know that you exist, right? But with the Gemini 3.0, the first release is always a preview, as Google calls it. So everybody running into the internet right now and testing their 3.0, they're training that model. And most people are not aware, right? So while we will release the pattern drawing first to our users, you can expect this to come before Christmas still, but you can expect like a general release early next year. Thanks.
Thank you. And yes, I know I've seen obviously the capabilities on Image Research Assistant, and very powerful.
Okay.
So with that, I want to thank you all again for joining this webinar on Qthena and the applications for the legal use cases and for legal professionals. A big thank you for Tony and Dannon for their time and actually sharing the experiences of how to leverage AI in their day-to-day workflows and activities to improve productivity. A copy of the recording will be shared. If you're interested to learn more or even demo the Qthena platform, we do recommend you please reach out to get more information. We will now conclude this webinar. Thank you and have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Thanks, Sam. Bye.
Thank you.